we're talking about the understanding that the numbers come from one source, one multidimensional source, and they stream down through the multidimensional universe down into this third dimension as a form of integrated consciousness. And us being number one is the individuality that we have, but also still being part of the whole. It gives us the capability of understanding that we ourselves have a certain level of control and understanding over our reality tunnel, but at the same time, collectively, we make up all the numbers.
Right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. Well, happy 2023 journeyers. It's been a while since we last spoke. Last year, in fact, 2022. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had a full guest on long form. You may have seen my conscious commentary. I did a couple of those just prior to the new year. But I figured to start off the new year, we would start off with a bang, with a B, like Billy Carson. Billy's back. Billy's back. Yay. I'm so excited. Billy, how are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's been a great new year so far. I'm really excited for this year, and thank you for having me on the show.
Always a pleasure. Billy's my friend, and it is always so much fun. When I can catch him, I went on Patreon, Billy, and I said, I nabbed him. I got him. Because I was saying to people, we got to get Billy Carson back on. Why? Let's just get to the heart of the matter. Here's why. I mean, look, you can talk about so many different things, and you do so with such eloquence and authority. But here's something that you and I have not talked about, and that is what's sitting right behind you, 1111 numbers. I want to get into numbers, Billy. I want to get into, excuse me, this idea that there is an uptick is what I've been saying in people noticing number patterns repeating. This has been going on for a long time, but clearly it is exponential at this point. And I want to dig in, get your perspective as to what you think may be going on here. And that would include the history and the symbology of numbers. So you put up a post, I think it was maybe November, that I'm going to, in post, I'm going to, post-production, I'm going to put a little snapshot so you guys can see it. Nice. Really good. By the way, he's got an awesome community section on his YouTube channel, Forbidden Knowledge. But let me quote what you said, and then we'll take off from there, Billy. You say, within numerology, angel numbers are number sequences, usually 3 or 4 numbers, that contain repetition, such as 111 or 4444, and or patterns such as 321 or 8787. Although they may appear in the most ordinary places, these digits usually grab our attention and, even if only for a moment, evoke a sense of wonder. The reason we're enchanted by these sequences, however, is an extension of their symbolism. It is believed that these numbers are messages from the spiritual universe that offer insight, wisdom, and directionality. Whether you assign them to angels, guides, ancestors, spirits, or simply a higher state of your own consciousness, angel numbers can confirm you're on the right path, shed invaluable insight on a complicated situation, or even illuminate the powerful mystical meaning behind recurring themes you experience throughout your life. You said a lot there.
Yeah.
You said a lot there. Let's start with this. This term angel numbers, I have to be really frank. That term has always been a little like, angel numbers, is that what they are? And particularly coming from you, where you are so technical and you're like really into the core behind a certain image or idea. What is when you say angel numbers, what do you mean by that in this regard?
It's a great question. A lot of people have called them angel numbers. So if I start calling them something else, they won't know what I'm talking about. And so sometimes you reach people where they are. So when they see angel numbers, they go, oh, he's getting ready to talk about the numbers, And so in my personal opinion, it's angels are really angles of light. We know that there are higher dimensions that exist in 90-degree angles above one another. And there are multiple dimensions going all the way up. We know this universe consists of a minimum of at least 11 dimensions, and all those are in angles or angels of one another, according to quantum physics. So the term angel numbers is a kind of a play on the angles, just because of when you take it into the more, I guess, the realm of where people like consider themselves to be psychics and other things. They use the term angels. Religious people use the term angels. It's a more attractive term to those people or the masses. But I'm taking the opportunity to just get the information in front of people when I say angel numbers. It doesn't believe that don't believe that there's higher beings and higher dimensions. I don't call them angels. I think that there's something else.
Angels, angles. Is there some actual derivative there is there some basis there? That's very interesting because it does sound very, yeah, the English language is fascinating when you really dig into the actual meaning.
When you go into some of the ancient tablets, you discover that the ancient Sumerians were talking about these angles of light that came down. So when you go into the ancient Sumerian tablets, you discover that the Sumerians were talking about these angles of light that were coming down and they were interacting with them. And then those angles of light later became known as angels. And they made it into the Bible as angels. And these angles of light were these beings that supposedly were coming from heaven to earth. And in the Atrahasis epic and in the Enuma Elish, they're known as Anunnaki, which means those who from heaven to earth came. And so from the perspective of a human being back then, anything that came from outside the earth was spiritual, was God, was from the creator. And so over time, as people became more and more religious, because these beings influenced religion, they then became angels. And they had wings. If you look at the Sumerian depictions, which I'm sure you can show some photos, I'll have some for you, you'll see depictions of these beings with wings on their backs. And what do you see in modern day angels? They all have wings on their backs. Well, these wings are derivatives of the ancient Sumerian carvings that's been found now that are thousands of years old.
Okay. It all makes sense. We look at I'm kind of digressing, or we're digressing a bit, but not really. When you think of the monotheistic religions and all of the symbology that so many devotees adhere to without questioning its origins, it's very interesting. And I think it's very important, particularly for the devotees who believe so fervently in what they have read and what they're told, what they're taught. But once you have an understanding from whence it came, where it actually came from, it should mean so much more. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
That was like a mini lesson, you guys, in a snapshot. So I want to stick with this angle thing because this is really important. You've now infused a whole other level of meaning to angle and numbers.
Yeah.
We're talking about math. We're talking about math. I want to read a quote from Pythagoras. You always wonder if it actually said to have come from Pythagoras, the father of mathematics, who said, this is powerful. It's very short. Number is the within of all things. He didn't say numbers. He said number
singular,
is the within of all things. Let's take that concept, one number, singular, not plural, and apply it to this idea of numerology, in which you take a group of numbers and in most cases bring them down to one single digit, one number. Behind you, you've got 1111. Now, of course, there are master numbers within numerology. 11 is one of them. 22 is another. Double digits tend to be. I don't think all of them, but certainly 11 and 22. But let's say, well, I guess you couldn't use 1111 as an example. Let's say you're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 as an example. I know a lot of people see that pattern. And you were to add 1, 2, 3, 4 up, all the way down to the lowest common denominator, the single digit, you get 1. Within 1, or within numerology, 1 denotes typically new beginnings. Is that how, I guess I'm starting with a statement, but ending up with a question. When individuals are seeing number patterns, as Pythagoras said, number is the within of all things. Would it be wise for them to take that sequence and pare it down to a single digit? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I believe that you're pretty accurate with what you're saying. Your statement was pretty accurate. We're talking about the understanding that the numbers come from one source, one multidimensional source, and they stream down through the multidimensional universe down into this third dimension. as a form of integrated consciousness. And us being number one is the individuality that we have, but also still being part of the whole. It gives us the capability of understanding that we ourselves have a certain level of control and understanding over our reality tunnel, but at the same time, collectively, we make up all the numbers. And so it's just like you have a radio station in your neighborhood that's broadcasting out frequencies, which are digits of numbers. And then you have a radio receiver that's able to pick up, depending on what station you're tuned to, specific digits of numbers to decode the information. If you imagine that the radio signal being sent out is spirit, and then now take that and convert it into the universal consciousness as being a transmission, each one of our avatar bodies has a capability of picking up a specific numeric frequency from the main source. And that frequency that we pick up comes from one source. It's one consciousness, but I'm 0.1, you're 0.2, somebody else is 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. And so we animate this avatar body based on that numerical system that's being streamed out from a higher dimension.
So would this explain why people seem to be attracted to or notice a certain number pattern on a frequent basis because they're tuned to that frequency?
Well, that has some to do with it, but also the fact that we are living in a mathematical universe. Mathematics literally explains everything that we see. Numbers explain everything that we see and experience, including even the dimensions of our body, the way that we break down light and everything else, all based on numerical numbers, numerical systems. And so what's beginning to happen is people are finally waking up to a certain level, and there's a reason why, which I'm going to talk about in a second, where they're starting to see a little bit beyond the veil and start to recognize some of the synchronicities that are occurring right around them. And these synchronicities have been happening for millennia, but up until, really now, as we went through a dark age and come back up now into the light, we're now starting to recognize and realize that we're living in a numerical light matrix. And that's what we're really living in. It's a light matrix based on mathematics. And there's a lot of synchronicities where you see these digits of numbers and you can catch them so randomly, even in different time zones, even on your microwave oven.
Yeah.
It can be a game on TV. I've caught them on basketball games where they blow the whistle and the clock for the game, which has nothing to do with a time clock, just the amount of time left on the clock for shooting the basketball is a 3-digit, a number. Or going to the gas station and seeing your gas. Yesterday, my gas was $4.44. So these things are just showcasing that we are living in a programmed matrix, and these synchronistic numbers expose a little bit of what's going on behind the veil. And then also you have the capability of tapping into some of these synchronicities. When you see them, there should be an attention being paid to where you are, who you are, what you're doing at that moment, and what's going on around you, because it could be a message for you to pay better attention to a situation, for the ability to get more enlightenment, to save yourself from a situation that could be detrimental, or to improve someone else's life, maybe become of service to others. Opportunities usually arise somewhere around these synchronicities.
This is really getting to the core, the heart of the matter, Billy, because the people that are interested in this conversation, I think it's fair to say, want to know, what do I do with this? What do these mean? And there is no template meaning, I would imagine. And yet there's got to be some purpose. I mean, it is said that the universe can sometimes play tricks on us and just, have a little bit of a laugh in showing us these things, and there may not be any meaning inherent in seeing these things. I don't know. The jury's still out on that. But assuming there is, how would one start to tap into the significance of they're seeing a number pattern? For you, let's talk about you. I heard you talk with, and you're going to have to tell me his full name, King
Simon.
King Simon, you guys, he is awesome. I'm actually going to put a link that Billy did an interview. Actually, it's on yourforbiddenknowledge.tv, which is a fantastic repository. You need to go over there. But I will put a link. He had a great conversation with this gentleman who is a literal king of numbers. And in the conversation, I know you talked about 4 being something that's very close to you. When did you notice this, and how have you been able to distill the 4 meaning in your life, if at all? If you're enjoying this episode, along with all of the subjects that we cover here on Higher Journeys, then I invite you to join our members only community on Patreon, where we go even deeper into the conversations with the guests that you know and love. Not only does your membership ensure that we can keep this work going and growing, but you'll also get immediate access to our exclusive after shows. Get up close and personal with the guests of the show, along with many other member perks. So click on the link below to join now, or visit higherjourneys.com where you'll find the Patreon link. We'll see you on the journey. Thanks.
It's pretty interesting because I'm born on the 4th, September the 4th, and my master number is 44, which is a super powerful number, which I didn't learn this until much later. But when I got my first numerical reading, the gentleman that was reading me, who had never met me before, knew nothing about me, and this was in the mountains in Jamaica. He didn't even have internet, so it couldn't look me up on Instagram or nothing else. But some of the things he told me, I had never told anybody. Just from my numbers based on my name, he got the number 44 out of my full name with this numerical code that the numerologists know how to break down. And he started telling me things about my heart. He said, when you were born, you had a hole in your heart, which is a fact. I have a heart murmur. I was born with a heart murmur. He knew about my kids and how many kids I had and the type of businesses I've had and how I'm so structured and how I work and how I'm able to multitask and run multiple corporations at the same time. And I've been very successful and how tedious I am. And he just laid it all out. So after that happened, that was years ago, I started paying a lot more attention to the fours. Now, here's what's interesting. I used to see a lot of 222s and 333s. But once I was brought aware of the number 4, and I had awareness brought to that number, yesterday, for example, like I just said a minute ago, the gas station, 444. I have videos on my Facebook where I would go to, went to Walmart in the middle of the night, random, just to pick up some candles. And they were $4.44. I mean, just crazy stuff like that. So, I mean, every single day, 2 or 3 times a day, I'm seeing 444 somewhere. And it's pretty interesting that once my attention was brought, or my awareness was brought to that number, at the synchronicity between me and that number in random places all over the world. And I've been around the world 5 times in 2022. It's everywhere, and it's almost in everything. And when I see the number, 2 things happen for me. The first thing is I go, I'm still in my flow state, because I truly do believe that the synchronicity of me seeing these numbers represents the state of mind that I'm in. And right now I'm in a super, super flow state. People who know me and have seen where I've gone just in the past 5 years from there to here, the flow state's been incredible. My accomplishments have been through the roof. And going and ongoing, and I'm just steadily moving on this incline. And so I feel like I'm still in my flow state. The second thing is I pause and then I evaluate my current situation. And a lot of the times I feel I either remember something that I forgot to do, I see an opportunity to help somebody, or I recognize a situation that if I make a decision either this way or that way, it can be good or it can be bad. So now I stop and I pause. I just don't go, oh, cool, I saw the number again, and keep on going.
Right.
I pause and take a moment for self-reflection and see what I can get out of that moment. Now, even if it's not having to do directly with the linking of the number or the synchronicity of seeing the number, I think it's great that these numbers, if you really stop and do that, if you have the time to stop and take a moment for self-reflection, I think you can actually tap into some level of enlightenment in that moment. Whether it's just a number popping up and you're taking a self-reflection just on your own, or something synchronicity to it. But I'm telling you, it's amazing, because I've been able to change and enhance so many things just from stopping for that moment of self-reflection and getting myself in brain-heart coherence.
That's so powerful, Billy.
Mm.
I have often asked the question, when we look at the nature of the universe and how it works, magic is
Mhm.
around us all the time.
Yeah.
Synchronicity is available, I will say,
Mhm.
absolutely all of the time,
Mm.
except for one very important caveat. You've got to notice it. By noticing it, by
Yeah.
acknowledging what it is,
Mhm.
I believe brings about more of it and helps to catalyze your
Mm.
own intelligence, or
Right.
acts as a catalyst for your own beyond intelligence, enlightenment, literally
Mhm.
enlightenment. I want to read something to you. You bringing up the 444. I know somebody out there right now is probably seeing 444 or 4 or 44. Excuse me. That's a very well, they call that the angel number. I think some refer to that as an angel number, but
Mm,
according to your understanding, they all have an angle aspect, right?
mhm.
Let me
Yeah,
read this from one of our patrons. Thanks to all the patrons. Part of the benefit of being a patron is you get to ask questions guaranteed to be asked on air. This one is from Dagmara, a dear friend and patron, journeyer in Australia, who says this. First, she says, Happy New Year. And what a fantastic first guest for 2023, Billy Carson.
thank you.
She says, Yes, we are, we aware ones all have our repeating numbers. For me, it's 111,
Mm,
123, and very strongly 444 and
mm,
44. She has attached a screenshot of this email, which I'm going to put in post so you'll be able to see. I received it at 4:44 a.m. when I sent the email to her about questions to ask for Billy Carson.
mm,
My question is, could there be a link with my particular repeating numbers and the emerald tablets?
mm,
The 144,000 prophesized light workers, I've read the tablets and they have had quite an effect on me, is
mhm,
what she says.
mm.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah, it's very interesting. That number 44, 144, there were 144,000 casing stones on the Great Pyramid. Some religions believe that only 144,000 people are going to make it to heaven, or what they call the paradise, right? And so we see this recurring theme of this 144 being a very important number, even in the biblical text. 144,000, angels are coming down with Jesus on his return, and so there's always this theme of this 144,000 over and over again throughout history, through many different civilizations and through many vastly different time periods. It makes you scratch your head like, what is up with this 144,000? It's
Right.
got to be a significant number, or they wouldn't have put 144,000 casing stones on the Great Pyramid. So there's a reason behind this, and it has a deep significance that goes far beyond any text that we have laying around, even the biblical text, even the Sumerian text. I think it goes even far beyond that. The oldest account of the Great Pyramid being built is in the Emerald Tablets, and that was approximately between 36,000 to 38,000 years ago, when Thoth, the Atlantean priest king who ruled over the land of Kem before it was called Egypt for 14,000 years, he wrote down himself in his own tablets that he had built the Great Pyramid
Hmm.
patterned after Earth's force, and he built it to stand the test of time so that it too might remain through the ages, which it has. And
Wow.
so you have to think, at the time that he architected this and drew the floor plan for this and had it created and built, he already had worked in 144,000 casing stones. So we're talking about this number 144,000 going back at least 36 to 38,000 years ago.
Absolutely. Something just came to me, Billy.
Mm,
Indulge me, guys, because I have this habit of trying to distill and oversimplify things, but sometimes there's something to it. Let's just play with this for a minute. 144. I'm going to take the 1,000 out. Let's just play with the number 144.
mhm,
Numerologically, it's 9.
yeah.
9 denotes, among other things, endings and new beginnings.
Hmm.
Because in numerology, it doesn't go 1 through 10, it goes 1 through 9, and then you start at 1 again.
Yes.
9 could be viewed as revelation. I'm just playing with it. I'm just saying.
Hmm.
What do you think? Let's play with that for a minute.
It's interesting. I like to really break down the 144,000 and see if we can find 3, 6, and 9 in there.
Hmm.
Like Tesla said, if you can discover the mystery of 369, you know the mysteries of the universe. But yeah, the 9 is a pretty significant number because it is an important number in a lot of mathematical computations. First and foremost,
That's right.
it, I mean, it's almost everywhere. You almost can't escape it, especially in things that are naturally occurring in nature. And according to what one of the notes that I took with King Simon on the number 9, he says, as the final digit in numerology, the presence of 9 suggests a chapter may be coming to an end. Witnessing 9 as an angel number uh, is a sign that meaningful cycle could come to a close, and you'll soon have a beginning of a brand new journey. So it's not really the ending, like it end times ending, but the end of a cycle and the beginning
In the
of a
beginning of
new
a new one.
cycle.
That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. Oh my God, I'm getting chills. Whatever you multiply 9 with comes out to be 9. You can't
Mhm.
escape it. 9 times 2 is 18, 1 and 8 is 9.
Mhm.
Right? Right?
Yes, you
9
can build a
times
whole
9 is
pyramid from that
81,
mathematical.
8 and 1
Yeah,
is 9.
yeah.
There's something powerful here. Something else just came to me. Tesla said, "If you can discover the secret of 369." You know what the secret is?
Mm,
It's 9. Because if
mhm,
you take 3, 6, and 9 and add it up, you take 3 and 6, it's 9. That
mhm.
means you now have 2 nines. 3 and
Yep.
6 is 9 plus 9. 9
Mhm,
and 9 is 81, 8 and 1 is 9.
mhm.
I'm
That's it,
getting
man. It's just
chills.
powerful. And there's something to that. I mean, he literally would walk around his building that he was living in near his death,
Yeah.
3 times, and he would go up certain floors at certain number of times. Everything he had to do had to add to 369. And so it was something to it. And what's interesting is before I moved into the previous house, this is 2 moves ago, I was starting fresh, talking about starting over. I was starting fresh out of one relationship to live on my own and start from zero again. And I went to this place. It was a brand new construction in Sunrise, Florida. And I was like, this place was so beautiful and so tranquil. A 180-degree water view. It's a condo. I never lived in the condo before, but I said, I'll give it a try. This is a brand new place. It was built on a Zen layout, and it even had a meditation hall inside of the building. So I said, you know what, I'll try this place. So I go and we're looking. We couldn't find an open available unit. Finally, we found one, the one that I ended up picking, and it was 369, number 369. And I said, oh, this is it. This is it. I have to stay here, which I did for 3 years. So it's a powerful thing. But that 9 definitely for me signified a new beginning.
Endings and new beginnings,
Yeah.
which it seems where we are right now.
Hmm.
Of course, I typically have on, I have to give a shout out to our numerologist friend, Sharon Milstein, who's brilliant, and Billy would do shows for us at the end of every year and
Mm,
kind of give us her prognostication numerologically
mm.
for the coming year and a wrap up of the previous year. So she
Yeah.
would go by the year that we're in. I want to talk about
Okay.
that as it relates to 4, but
Hmm.
we're in a 7 year right now. 7
Yeah.
happens to be my life number.
Wow.
But, yeah, very interesting. There's still so much to know, but
Mm.
let's talk about 4. Let's go back to 4 because this is your number, right?
Right.
4
Yeah.
is that your life? Did you say it is your life number? 4?
44 is my master number.
44.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm born on the 4th of September, which is pretty incredible. And my name fully spelled out in numerology comes out to a 44.
A 44.
Yeah.
Wow. The
So
4
pretty
year
interesting.
was a powerful year, the last 4 year, because it was 2020 and we all know what happened there.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I literally excelled the most I've ever excelled in my life since I've been in business and life in these last 4 years. I made more money during the hardest part of the global sickness, I want to call it,
Mm.
than I ever made in my life. While everybody was going down the tubes, I was shooting like up like a rocket.
4 was a powerful, the 4 year 2020 was very powerful for me as well. It was
Mm,
very it seemed I guess it would seem counterintuitive, but it was
yeah.
very, very I made a lot of breakthroughs on the 4 year, but I'll tell you a really, really quick story, guys, if
Mhm,
you'll bear with me. So, just before all hell broke loose is what I like to say, in March of 2020, I had
mm,
returned from Australia lecturing there for the second time. And while there, the host of the conference, the producers of the conference who hosted me were nice enough to route my flight back to the States through Melbourne so I could visit a friend. And
mm,
while there, and this friend, who was in our field, does some really, really great energetic and shamanic, very unique shamanic work. And
mm,
she was determined to do a session with me while I was staying with her. And I said, okay, Marie, let's go for it. I'll give it a try. And as she had me in sort of an altered state, now this is prior to March, this was in
mm,
January, I was in Melbourne.
mm.
She said, now, Alexis, at some point during this session, I want you to tell me what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Billy, I yelled out, 4.
Wow.
She said,
Wow.
what? I said, 4.
Mm,
She said, what else? Nothing.
mm.
4. And I screamed to the top of my lungs.
Yeah.
And I thought,
Wow.
what the hell was that?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, when I got back to the States and we got into March and
Mhm,
Uh, what happened, the only thing I could think of, the only thing I associated it with was this urgency of screaming for, meaning in the 4 year, there's going to
Mm,
be a sense of urgency.
mm,
Things are going to
mm.
change. It's the only thing I could attach it to, but that's what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah. Yeah, 4
4.
is a powerful number, and, when I'm talking with King Simon, it symbolizes observing 4 as an angel number or a number of, like I call of angles. It suggests that you are in the process of grounding, rooting, and cultivating an infrastructure that's truly built to last. And if you look at what I've done with Forbidden Knowledge, I've anchored it, I've structured it, I've built teams, I got a board of directors. We've had 2 rounds of funding, and we're heading into our 3rd round of funding. Literally any moment now, as the SEC is going to give us that approval, and then we're going to uplist to Nasdaq. We have over 5,000 investors in Forbidden Knowledge, people who bought shares of the company, and the TV network is expanding with over 6,000 shows. And my documentary that I did, the first one I've ever done, got Independent Film of the Year. So
Yay.
it's just so powerful and so accurate. So I'm just continuing to build and just trying to maintain my flow state.
Forbidden knowledge.
Yeah,
I
4.
won't
That's
even
number
ask you.
4.
I think we know where it came from, and you always
Yeah. And interestingly, when I made that name, I
4.
had no link or connection or understanding of the 4s. I just knew
Really?
that. Yeah, I
Oh,
didn't. Yeah. So what I did was I wrote out the name Forbidden Knowledge. And I said, okay, what if I just use the number 4? It just came to me. So I used the number 4 instead of FOR. But it all is, see, everything is a fractal. And so it came, the essence of the 4 came out of me into my conscious thought and said, no, make it a 4 because you are a 4. And that's exactly what I did. And that's how Forbidden Knowledge came out,
isn't that something? And it's
2011.
so powerful that it came before your full recognition of the significance of 4, but you had
Mhm.
unconscious recognition. It was there, just like the
Yeah.
dreams I told you about. I'm not gonna share it with it's kind of private, but I shared with
Yeah.
Billy after or before we went on the air.
Yeah.
At some level, we know, even
Mhm.
though we don't think we know.
Exactly. Yeah, it's in there. It's all the knowledge and wisdom, all the information throughout the entire universe is contained inside of our bodies.
Every cell.
That's right.
It's powerful stuff. Let me give you another patron question. This is from Victorina. Hi, Vic. Thank you for your question. She says, my numbers are always with a 0 in the middle.
Mm,
909, 606, 303, 404, 505. A lot.
mm.
And to me, it looks like SOS. I put in
Wow,
the for me because to her, it looks like SOS. What's that about? What do you
that's
think that's about?
interesting. Wow, that's powerful. I've never heard that exact sequence before, but that's pretty interesting because it would look like an SOS, which is a call out for help. But maybe it's to help yourself or just to be awareness of people in need of help. It could not be, it doesn't always have to be something derogatory or negative that's going to happen, like you're in trouble. It could be, there could be somebody else that in your surroundings that needs assistance. And our biggest thing that we can do on this planet is be of service to others.
Absolutely.
But one King Simon's notes again, zero is associated with new opportunities. And when you witness a 0 in sequence within a set of 3 or 4, this could signify a fresh start. And you're at a very beginning of a brand new cycle, which means you can create whatever your heart desires, which is pretty interesting. But she's seeing a combination of 2 different, which means it could be a message, to create the SOS. 5 suggests major changes could be on the horizon. So it could be a combination of a new cycle and major changes. So just something for her to self-reflect because she knows her life and her path better than anyone else. And every time you see it, it's time to sit back and reflect and see
Mm,
what could this possibly mean for me? Where am I right now? Who am I in contact with? Who are my connections? Who are my inner network, my inner circle? What obligations do I have? Who around me needs assistance in any way, shape, or form? And start that kind of thinking, and everything will then, the universe will just send it right to you. All that
just by
information you
asking.
desire will come right to you.
Okay. Wow. I hope you got something out of that, Vic. I sure did. That's really that's fascinating. You said something so key in paraphrasing, Billy. You said that just in the acknowledgement that something powerful is going on. the recognizing,
Mhm.
the universe has given us a wink and a nod, we've got to wink back,
Yeah.
will perhaps trigger
Mhm.
what it is we're to understand. The
Right.
synchronicity is always there, but don't let it be in vain. If you don't notice it's a synchronicity and do something with it, it'll still be there, but you're not getting
Mhm.
what you need to get out of it. So
Right.
here's mine. I got to do mine. Of course, 1111 is
Mm.
it dips and it waxes and wanes in and out of my life. It's very
Mm.
interesting. My husband too. But
Wow.
55 has been pretty much a constant. I see it several times a day,
Mm.
probably for the last couple of years.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Yeah. Well, that's not an easy number from my mindset. It's not an easy number to find. That's pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What are your
That's
thoughts on it,
amazing.
on the significance? 55
Uh,
all the time.
it's all about it matches, it matches right now where you're sitting in your house. I mean, new change on the horizon, which has happened. And it says if you've been feeling stuck, stifled, or inspired, observing five as an angel number, with three or four, it says either within a set of three, four, or four digits reveals a massive shift might be in the works. For now, these transformations might be occurring behind the scenes.
Hmm,
In other words, key decision makers are still weighing options, but five appearing as an angel number suggests you're on the right path. So it's pretty interesting.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's the double. It's 9 times out of 10, it's on a clock, and it'll be
Yeah.
55 past the hour. Sometimes it's
Wow.
5:55, but it's
Yeah.
3, 4 times a day.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Mhm.
pretty cool. It's so
Okay.
amazing how these numbers, we just catch them. I mean, it doesn't matter what time zone you're in. You switch time zones, you still catch them. That's how you know it's outside of
Yes.
time. You catch it on a microwave or an oven time clock. You catch it on your watch or your cell phone. It's just so random where it could be. It could be on a TV show. It could be anywhere. It could be in, like I said, the gas pump. I mean, that's not even a clock. So it's just amazing how we're drawn to see these synchronicities occurring all around us. To me, it's definitely coding of the matrix, stopping and saying, "Hey, look at this," and that's our signal to then, I believe, reflect on the flow state that we're in, the mindset, what we're doing, how we're doing it, who we're interacting with, how we're interacting with them, and just maybe even to thank ourselves for the blessings that we have.
Mhm. There are many perhaps that will say, "I've been seeing these repeating numbers for 20 years,"
Hmm.
let's say. But let's go 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this was not happening as readily as it is now.
Hmm.
If that is true, what has happened in our time,
Hmm.
as it were,
Yeah.
of this century and of what's going on with us and with the planet
Hmm.
cosmologically,
Yeah.
biologically, that might
Hmm.
make this more prevalent right now?
Right. Well, there's one thing in particular that's in astrophysics that's peer reviewed, that's documented science taught in astrophysics in universities. I believe it has effect on biology. And so what it is our solar system, okay, it orbits the Milky Way galaxy because our sun orbits the Milky Way galaxy. We're on that outer arm way out in the boondocks of the Milky Way galaxy. But our solar system undulates up and down as it's orbiting around the central of the giant supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. It undulates up and down. Those undulations represents hundreds of thousands or hundreds of millions of miles up, hundreds of millions of miles down. Now, what's interesting is just within the last 8 years, we reached a point through the undulation or the movement of our solar system where it has reached a total equal plane with the center of the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And that supermassive black hole is emitting and sending out an enormous amount of energetic particles on that plane. And we're now receiving those particles directly. Those particles even penetrate solid matter. They're affecting our DNA. They're hitting and pinging our DNA and changing the way our bodies are, changing our genes and everything else, and even our consciousness, even the way our neurons fire in our brains. So I believe that this particular cycle, which is what the minds were talking about the whole time, it was never the end of the world. If you go back on my old post, I was saying people were going, it's the end of the world. The world's going to end 2012. It's like, no, it's the end of a cycle. We're going into a beginning of a new cycle. Right after 2012, we hit that point where we actually are at the midpoint. We're actually hovering right around the centerpiece or the equatorial plane of the supermassive black hole, receiving all these charged particles, which are altering our consciousness and our DNA all around the planet. And so that's where we are right now. And I believe that that energetic field that we're in right now, in some way, shape, or form, has allowed us to tap into seeing these synchronicities, becoming more conscious, asking more questions, breaking out of the old dogma of religions and starting to seek more spirituality. This is the part of a new cycle, as the Mayans talked about, that we're headed into, this age of enlightenment.
I have finally gotten the insight that I have yet to receive, Billy, from any conversation I've had.
Mm.
I am always interested in the why now.
Mhm.
Even though time as we understand it may not exist, there are
Mhm.
patterns inherent in our time frame.
Mm.
And no one can tell me that 50, 60, 100 years ago, the masses were seeing these repeating numbers and acknowledging them the way they are now.
Yeah.
Billy, I think you just explained, at least in part, why.
Mm.
Holy beep. That's
They call
huge.
me
And it makes
forbidden
sense.
knowledge.
Forbidden knowledge. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. And it would account for so many other enigmatic, anomalous
Yes.
wonkiness that's
Mhm.
going on. We're
Yeah.
living in I have said it, I'll say it again. We're living at a metaphysically potent time.
Mm.
Billy may have just explained why. Hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's gonna wane anytime soon, huh?
Oh, no, no. We've got thousands of years to this plane of existence. So we're going to see a huge push. We're in the Tetra Yuga. If you understand the Yuga cycles, we've
Kali
gone through
Yugas.
the bronze and everything. We're in the beginning of a silver age, trying to get ourselves back up towards a new golden age. And so we're going to be here and moving up consistently over time. And people tend to look around and go, well, what is this guy talking about? This is the end times. Everything is going to pot. We got people being killed over here. Russia's attacking the Ukraine. And no, 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 no. They haven't studied history. See, I'm a historian, a true historian. People who are thinking that these are the end of days are far off. This is actually the best time to be alive
Mhm.
since recorded history. If you want to talk about times that were 10 million times worse than we are right now, let's look at the Black Plague. Let's look at the bubonic plague. Let's look at the Spanish flu, which almost took out, all three of these took out, almost took out the entire population of the earth. You don't see millions of people dropping dead in the streets right now. Let's talk about the papal inquisitions, where over the course of 700 years, they killed over 80 million people. 80 million people aren't dying today right now. They're not dropping dead. At that rate, even over that course of that time, you'd see hundreds of thousands of people being slaughtered per day. We don't have that happening right now. Let's look into the American Holocaust, where Europeans came to the Americas and slaughtered 111 million indigenous people over the course of only 70 years.
Mm.
Those would have been the end of days, right? So we've had all these situations that have occurred, and it hasn't been the end of days yet. And now we're moving into this area, age of enlightenment, where we are far beyond that. And yes, there still are things going on. There's people still being sold as slaves in Libya. There's this war going on with Russia and Ukraine, and we have skirmishes in other countries in the Middle East and so forth. But overall, based on historical events, this is actually the best time to be alive on this planet right now. If you're alive right now, you hit the lottery. I'm just telling you.
I love it. Oh my gosh. I agree with you. I agree. And this is not just, um, I'm not just spewing baloney here. Neither are you, obviously. I have felt this is not just something that I've read or even in the beginning of the pandemic, I said
Mm.
something has happened here metaphysically. I described it as feeling as if we had been moved to another part of the galaxy,
Mm.
literally. Now, this is my own crude sort of interpretation or distillation. I
Mm.
used the Wizard of Oz scenario where Dorothy,
Okay.
1 minute she's in her home,
Yeah.
uh, you know, where the screen is black and white, When she opens the door, she's in Oz and it's full color. You're not in Kansas anymore. But that's not a bad thing. We are not in Kansas anymore. Billy, I want to continue the conversation, but you know what we have to do? We've got to take it to the after show. Billy's time is a bit short. I'm looking at the clock, and we have a few more things to cover. So we're going to sign off on the main show. We're hoping to see you, particularly this year in 2023, because we got so much good stuff coming up. Not to mention that we've got other after shows with Billy. So there's a catalog growing with Billy over there. But we're going to go over there right now, Billy. Here's what I want to talk about over on the after show. We didn't get to the legend and the myth behind the number 13. It's not what you think. And I want to talk about that. And I also want to talk about synesthesia, something that you and I share in common. I don't know if you recall, we talked about that, I believe, in our first interview, and it came up once again in your interview with King
Simon.
I want to call him King Solomon. That's why I keep pausing.
I know, right? King Solomon's temple. I know.
Right?
I've almost called him King Solomon so many times, so don't feel bad.
Okay, good. Because I know it's not that. Okay, King Simon. We're going to talk about that. We're going over the after show. Please come join us. There's a lot of reasons to do it, not to mention supporting Higher Journeys. So, Billy, thanks. Don't go away. We're going next door right now. We will talk to you soon. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to watch what's next, plus more to explore. And don't forget to subscribe to Higher Journeys.